season ticket prices are so high. Like they could go 1-15 or 15-1. They would still be high. I get it. It's DC. It's the area, but still, like, or what is it? Art Blank for the Falcons down here made tickets a lot less expensive, even with a brand new stadium. I don't know why Snyder still has the ticket prices like soaring. I checked them the other day, and I'm like, Jesus, for nosebleeds, really?
Right. Yeah. And not only did Arthur Blank make the ticket prices really, really low, he also made the price of concessions really low. I think you can get a beer and hot dog for
pregame season. In the pregame season. Sorry, the preseason. I'm sorry, Paul. My tongue
it's
is
late.
twisted.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah. No, the preseason, I went there for a game against the Redskins, ironically, because my buddy's a Redskins fan. And yeah, hot dog was $1, hamburger was $2, a draft beer was $3. It's not $8 like it would be at any other stadium. Like Green Bay is fairly cheap, but it's like $6 or $7 still for a draft beer.
Right. Yeah. No, I went to a Redskins Cowboys game week 2, and for like the 18th year in a row, the price of beer went up. It's like $14 for a Bud Light bottle.
Good Lord.
Yeah, it's really, really bad. And I think that really
that's a 12-pack.
It's a 12-pack. I'd rather stay at home with my like $14 and just have a 12 or a Bud Lights on my couch. But to answer your question, I think it just has to do with Snyder being tone deaf. I think that he thinks he has a loyal fan base, and he does. I mean, the Redskins fans are the most loyal fans I know, and you can tell because I'm doing this podcast with you late night, and my team is 3-9. But it's a thing where it's like he's completely tone deaf and doesn't really understand what it's going to take to bring these fans back in. I mean, you've seen Redskins games this season, the past couple seasons. You've seen our stadium be overrun by Cowboys fans, by Giants fans, by Eagles fans. You've seen the 3/4 empty stadium, and it's 5 minutes to kick off, and there's 50,000 empty seats. But Daniel Snyder doesn't see that as a problem. He sees that as just, people are just upset that we're losing. He doesn't see that as, well, the fan experience is so bad and the tickets are so expensive. Why am I going out there every week to see this team lose? You think the least he could do is actually like make the concessions a little bit more affordable, make tickets a little bit more affordable, bring the fans back. But, he doesn't get that. He doesn't understand.
I mean, sadly, heck, even, you look at New England, Green Bay, you look at San Fran, all these other stadiums with like those bigger name teams along there. I'm not saying Redskins isn't a bigger name team, just the success that they've had either this season or recently. I mean, the Green Bay, I've been up there multiple times for games, and like I said, it's not expensive, but it's still like, draft beer shouldn't be a couple bucks more, but $14 for a Bud Light, one bottle you're saying is $14.
14. I couldn't believe it. I whipped out. I whipped out like a $10 bill and a couple ones. I was like, all right, how much do I owe you? And you're like, oh, sir, you owe me like $2 more for the beer. I was like, well, that would mean the beer is $14. And he was like, it is. I was like, okay, this is my only one for the day then, because I'm not gonna be out here getting drunk off $14 beers. I'll be broke by halftime. No way.
Exactly. Well, you know what? With the now getting to the matchup this week, I see both teams are healthy for the most part. I only saw a couple players out for Redskins. It was Richardson and Quinn. Quinn suffered the concussion last week by the dirty hit, which I thought, honestly, with that right there, the Panthers player that did that, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but it should be suspended for the rest of the year because now the NFL is on the stage of, hey, we're trying to play safer. We're trying to do this to show younger kids in high school and small fry football that we cannot play like that. We can't be vicious with our hits to go ahead and be malicious to hurt someone. And that player did that 100%. Like,
yeah,
I couldn't believe it.
Right. And it was really like just weird. I feel bad for Trey Quinn. That was a vicious hit, and he was dazed right after. You could tell that he went right to the locker room. He didn't return. Yeah, and he's out a game. But there was a similar hit later in the game where our linebacker Ryan Anderson laid out Greg Olsen on a really bang play, and I think Greg Olsen got knocked out, so they threw him out the game. But the play was much less vicious than the play with Ryan Anderson. You know, it was more of a bang play on the punt return with Quinn. He lowered his head and hit him square on the crown of the helmet.
For him.
Right, exactly. It's like, how was he not kicked out of the game, but our guy was. But, you know, this helmet-to-helmet rule in the NFL is inconsistent at best. So, you know,
well, that's the refs this year. They're inconsistent every single week, every single game. Every rule means something different each week. Jay's a huge person on that, as I am as well. The refs are horrible this year. The CBA is up for discussion next year, and the refs need to be held accountable. I read an article earlier in the season that made me sick to my stomach, reading that we have part-time refs, meaning that whenever someone can't do it, like, to me, I get it if people are sick and a referee can't do the job, but, like, if, say, they have to call someone up, they have part-time refs available, and that kills me.
There's so many things wrong with the way they do refereeing, okay? We're going to get in this rabbit hole because it's a good discussion, because people need to get off of this, because I'm so tired of the fans every week bickering with each other about who got screwed worse and cost them the game. Because it's at the end of the day, it ends up being equal because everybody's getting terrible referees. Now, here's where the inconsistencies start that drive me nuts. And you guys can jump in here, too, and anytime and just tell me shut up.
Thanks, Jay.
So, first of all, they have part-time referees. They're not all full-time. There's like less than 50% of all the officials that you see on Sundays are actually full-time employees of the NFL's referee association, whatever. Okay, that's the first faux pas. They should all be full-time. Second of all, there is no established crews per se. Like they might have 2 or 3 guys that work together, but then they're a mixed bag of like the line judge and the back judge, or, you know, like the less important ones. So they're not all working together week in and week out. Thirdly, Dave brought up the point of, yes, having sick. If they were all full-time employed and they all work together, you know what else you can have? You can have 2 or 3 guys that are trained in 4 or 5 different positions as subs just for that crew, or for 2 or 3 crews. Because let's be real. Like, how many Sundays are there where there's like 15 referees that are freaking sick? It's like 1 or 2 throughout the league. So if you had a group of, like, let's say 8.
Or maybe if one gets knocked out of the game from a bad hit, you have one on standby with that situation.
Right. Instead of having to go the rest of, like, there's so many easily fix-free, multi-billion-dollar corporation on something so simple that simple people like us can come up with. It's time to stop. There's no more excuses.
No, you took the words right out of my mouth there. I was going to say, for a multi-billion-dollar organization, an entity like the NFL is, I mean, you talk about it, like, to steal a quote from that movie, they own a day of the week. You know, this is the NFL we're talking about here. To have the referees be so just inconsistent and subpar week to week, just missing calls, missing blatant calls, just, it's ridiculous. And to not have a crew that's a go-to crew and have them mix and match week to week, not have crew stay together, it really absolutely makes no sense to me personally. I mean, it's just like, you need to actually nail this down in the next CBA and get some clarity with the referees, because, I mean, it's not me, but you're going to lose fans because people don't want to see the referees take over games. Like, for example, the Redskins game last week went to almost 5 o'clock because there was like 18 stoppages in play because the referees were so terrible. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I mean, I can't spend 4 hours on a Sunday watching terrible football, and also watching terrible refs. Like, pick one or the other. I can't be both.
Well, and here's the other thing. Here's the next level of it that we're going to jump into now. Secondly, that needs to be done is the competition committee needs to be something that is voted on every couple of years to keep it people that are fresh up in the game and or at least willing to be open-minded to the way the game is changing. Second part of that is they need to go through this rule book and decide what is necessary, clarify the things that are foggy the best they can, and if they can't like easily clarify them and the rule isn't really like that great, or that like holding, you better clarify it. Like, it's not that hard to me to clarify it so that it's like, okay, that's clearly holding. It's not. Instead of having this, there's holding on every on every play. It's whether or not they want. That's bullshit kind of refereeing. That's dumb. Right. Like, it's 2020 almost. We should be able to say, okay, if the hands are here, this is not holding. If the hands are here and you do this and this player that's it's not that hard to clarify it. And so those 4 things are holding. If those 4 things aren't happening, it's not holding. Boom. Now we don't have holding on every single play by every player, and whether or not it's I decide I want to call it at a critical time in the game because I'm bored now. That's what refereeing is in the NFL.
Right. There's 2 calls in particular I'd love to see them change when the CBA is up. One is this new rule they put in place with pass interference, how you can review it. Listen, you either got to make it a judgment call or just go back to like the 80s and 70s and not call pass interference at all. Like, let them mug the wide receivers, because this new rule they put in place, it really doesn't have any rhyme or reason or clarity to what it actually can be overturned. I've seen plays where wide receivers are obviously pushing off and they don't actually reverse the call or make the call right on the field, and then they review it and they don't fix the call. I'm like, so what was the point of even reviewing it? Another one is the personal foul, like roughing the quarterback with hands to the face. There was a play a few weeks ago, I don't know if you remember it, in the Redskins-Vikings Thursday night game, where Matt Ioannidis literally jogged into Kirk Cousins and their face mask may have bumped, and they called it a 15-yard penalty. I'm like, listen, I get you're trying to protect players and quarterbacks in particular, but that's not a penalty. That is bullshit. You can't call something like that. Calls like that change games. That's the difference between somebody going 9-7 and going to the playoffs and 8-8 and sitting on the couch. You know, like, you can't.
Oh wow,
it definitely is.
You know
it's
what?
Ridiculous.
That's not that hard, Paul, because it's called. Instead of having everything reviewable and coaches' challenges on stupid things, it's called this. It's the college rule. Oh, it's a critical moment in the game, and that's a huge penalty. We're going to take a minute, have our professionals sitting in this office that we pay for in this billions of dollars we make a year, and we're going to review it.
And they have a crew for that every game to do.
Yep. And we're not going to sit here and let these things just go and then later be like, yeah, it shouldn't have been called. No, we can fix it in the moment. It takes less than 90 seconds to do this, and just do it. Mm-hmm. Okay, that wasn't pass interference. And by the way, Paul, I have thought about this a lot. Pass interference isn't that hard to make it so it's not a judgment call. It's as simple as this. DBs are athletic enough. All these guys are athletic enough. This is the rule. Your head doesn't turn around and look for the ball, and you contact the receiver and impede his ability to get the ball. It's interference. Mm-hmm. Anything else, if you're turning, there's no, his head was turned, but he yanked him. No, if your head's turned and you're looking for the ball, everything that happens free game because you're trying to play the ball. It's not that damn hard. They say a defensive player has the right to the ball. If his face is looking at the ball in the air, he's got a right to it. The receiver's fighting for it. Then it's just a fight. Whoever catches the ball or doesn't, who cares at that point? This is another one that at this point is not that difficult to figure out.
Absolutely. Now, amen. You said it right, brother. I couldn't agree with more than anything you just said. It's just the inconsistency is just killing me. Either call it consistently every single time, or get rid of the rule, or just I just don't get it. I don't get it.
Well, we're not ones to sit there and complain about single plays in games for against the Packers, but if there was one, I don't know if you remember the Philly Green Bay game, Paul, at the end of the game when literally Geronimo Allison, or no, it was MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, literally had his arms pinned to his sides and his hands looked like T-Rex arms.
I do. I remember it.
And that was the guy
deflected off his chest and intercepted to end the game
because his arms couldn't come up, and they just let it ride. Not a review, nothing. And this is below 2 minutes, and I'm like, what was the rule for then?
Right.
What was the whole? Like you just said, what was the rule for?
Right. I know that all this is in reaction to the Saints-Rams game, the NFC Championship game last year. Yep. I know that rules put in place as an overreaction to that. And whatever, I get it. I don't mind that pass interference should be reviewable by, by the red flag on the field. But don't tell me, a fan. I mean, I'm just a fan, but I know what pass interference is for the most part. I know what it's not. Don't show me pass interference have a red flag thrown on the field and then say, nope, it wasn't pass interference. I was like, the guy was mugged out there. Like, you're just calling it just like, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't understand.